There's a very good chance you've been screwing up your contrast, and I'm here to help you with 2 excellent tools. Before we begin, this video's sponsor is Linode, and they make it easy and affordable to host your site, app, or service on whatever technology stack you use. Unlike entry-level hosting services, Linode is a step up to powerful, fast, fully configurable cloud computing. With server plans starting at just $5 plus no hidden fees or surprise outages, Linode offers a no-nonsense hosting at a price you can afford. So sign up now using the link below to get a $20 credit on your new Linode account. So I've done contrast videos in the past, but I never really got in depth very much. And there's a couple tools that I want to feature that I didn't mention in the previous video that are awesome, all right? So first, before I talk about those tools, there's something called the WCAG 2.0 contrast standard, and you can find out more information here. If you just go and type in WCAG 2.0 color contrast, you'll get to this link, and there is a ton of literature here about how they arrived at these. But basically, the idea is the contrast minimum is a visual representation of text and images of text that has a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1, except for the following like large text, etc. So basically what this means is when you're going to create a color scheme for a project, you should adhere to these standards. And the reason why there's a AA and then a AAA is because we all have different issues with our eyesight. Some people have perfect eyesight, many people don't. There's 20/40 vision, there's 20/80. And if you can create your color palette so that it can reach as many people as possible, or in other words, as many as people as possible can read and be able to experience your project as you intend it, then that's the better thing. So we'll see how these ratios and stuff come into play when we look at the plugin. So the first plugin we're going to look at, it's not a plugin, it's actually built into Chrome right now, and it's in the DevTools, and it is awesome. So I'm going to show you how to use that, and we're going to take a look at a few different examples to see if they actually meet these standards. And then also we're going to hop into Adobe XD to check out a plugin called Stark. Now Stark is also, as in stark contrast by the way, Stark is also for Sketch and as well as Figma. That's right, Figma. And it has a free version, which is perfectly fine, and then a paid version, which is like $2 a month or $20 a month. And we're gonna create our own color scheme with the help of a color scheme service called coolers.co. And I'm gonna show you how to fine tune it to make sure that your colors and such, as you're using them in the context of a UI design and you're designing your UI elements and components, that make sure that they adhere to at least AA of the WCAG 2.0 color contrast standard. All right, so if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. Okay, so here's going to be our first example. We're going to check out 3 different websites here just to show you this in action when it comes to, get out of here. Okay, when it comes to checking contrast here within Chrome's DevTools. So here's just a nice looking landing page, and we're going to take a look at just a couple of the areas here to ensure that the contrast meets these minimum specifications, or at least AA. All right, so to get this out, hit Control-Shift-I, and we want to go into and select one of the type-based elements so that we could check the contrast here as much as possible. So the area that we're going to check here, we'll first check this button. All right, so it's this pretty vibrant sort of green with a white text on top. So we're going to choose this little selector right here. You can select any element, click on it. And we can see first that if we click this A element, we can see the background color associated with it right here, and it falls right here on the color spectrum. And it's actually very similar to my Corsetto branding color. And then we have, they have a div class in here for the label, and we can see the color is right here. Now immediately we can see right away contrast ratio is 2.34, and it has a stop sign, meaning it doesn't meet the required 4.5 ratio as specified here. So AA is 4.5 for smaller text. If you get to larger text, as you see in another example, it's 3.0. But the higher the number, for instance, AAA, That means the most contrast, or it's nearing the most contrast as possible for people who have really bad eyesight, like 20/80 or something like that. And so now you have a couple options. Like, how do we fix this situation? Well, you have two options really. You can adjust the foreground color, or the actual color of the color property here in CSS of the text itself, or the background. So we could see these lines right here, and these are indicators letting us know that if you want to be able to adhere to this standard, at least to AA, then you need to be within this section right here based on the current color that is chosen. So what we could do, we can see the color, you can barely tell, the color picker right here is it's completely white, so it's way up here. But you can see as you move this around, it's going to start adjusting the color ratio based on where you're at in terms of saturation and the hue and all that good stuff. But if we come down right here, anywhere inside of this line, we can see it gets to a green check mark. And you can see how it's showing us in real time in this button and this button, which has the same class, what it looks like. All right, so if we go all the way down beneath that line, the second line here, we could see it's satisfied and it's into AAA. You don't have to do that, but it's there for your reference. And you also have other options. You don't have to necessarily stick within like this red color, which is just default. You can move perhaps into the same green hue right here. And notice when we move this up, if we move this around, notice how the lines are changing. And that's based on if you're getting into the blues and the purple area, you generally are able to have a little bit more color in order to satisfy these requirements. But if we go right around here, which is roughly the same color as the background, we can push it more this way and give it more of that green color if you wish, while still satisfying these ratings right there. Let's take a look at another example. So right here, this is a nice site, very well designed. What about this? What do you think this would pass? Well, let's see. Control-Shift-I. Let's first take a look at the labels, because we have two different sizes here that we're working with. So we'll choose that, and we're going to find the color, and this is passed. Now notice it's 3.0. Why is it 3.0? It's because this is larger text. So it's either 14 points bold and larger, or it's 18 points regular and larger in order to be just 3.0. And then as well, AAA goes from 7.0 to 4.5 when it comes to larger text. Now, if we do choose, however, this, and we go here, we could see that this one fails the contrast ratio. It's pretty close, it's 3.17, but we need to get to 4.5 if we want to satisfy these requirements. So again, you can go beneath this line and get there, or you could change the background color and get there as well. So you can see it's kind of up here. We could come down this way. We could shoot over to the right. Let's see what that ends up doing. So we go here. And 4.49, we are literally very close to satisfying it. I was trying to think of the mathematical 1/100th, right? So we're very, very close. So this is a great way for you to really determine, are the elements that people need to be able to see. That doesn't necessarily mean it's images. It could be icons, or text rather, but it could be icons as well. Are they adherent to these standards? Very important stuff. Like, we can check this one out. And this is 3.17. That's because it's a pretty large text right here, and it's very close. So you can get very close within these guidelines, and it'll work out quite well. So instead of doing another example, we're just going to go on to creating our own color scheme here. I think you get the point with the Chrome extension. So there's a bunch of tools that you can use to help you come up with color schemes. Of course, you don't have to use any. You can come up with them on your own. I'm choosing just to use one right here, coolers.co. I've done a couple videos, I believe, where I've outlined different tools, and this is one of them that I featured. We're to start the generator, and this is a very robust app for just coming up with color schemes. You hit your space bar, as it suggests right here, to just randomly come up with color schemes. All right, so once you find maybe one or two that you like, or just a single one, you can hit lock. Like, hey, I like this one. I think that's freaking good. These complement each other well. So does this one right here. In fact, I like almost all of these. So you can keep on hitting the space bar, and it will continue to change these up. This is like an almost white. Let's keep that. Yeah, you know what? This is all good. Let's go ahead now and export this. So let's export an SVG file. And now I'm going to show this in the folder, and I just moved it off screen. And now I have a blank document, a desktop 1920 document open here in Adobe XD. You can use whatever else you want for this example. And I'm going to drag in the SVG file that was exported from that Coolers app. All right, so I'm going to turn off responsive resize. Actually, it doesn't even matter. I can just take this. We're just going to use this as a quick color palette section right here. All right, so how will we use this in the context of, you know, an actual app or whatever? Well, let's get out our artboard tool, create another artboard. Maybe we'll just do iPhone XR right here. All right. So at this point, we have to ask ourselves, you know, we don't really have much context of what this app, it's not even an app. I just wanted to design a quick, just a quick section, maybe like a hero section of a landing page or something. You can ask ourselves, all right, which background color do we want to start with? Well, you can go light, you could go dark. Sometimes you have sites that'll go full on color blast, and maybe they'll use something like this. Well, let's just give it a shot and see what happens. We're going to use this pinkish color right here. So I'm going to take our tool right here, our rectangle tool, get rid of that border that's always being added. It's very annoying. And let's see here. We're going to choose that color right here. So we'll say the requirements of this app, we need a headline of some sort. So we're going to left click here, and we'll say, I don't know, a fun time. I literally just came up with that off the top of my head. I can't think of anything else. I don't know why I come up with these ideas, but it's just like the first thing that came to mind. I don't know. Let's just do Nunito. It's like a fun roundish sort of font. All right. So how do we know if the contrast here is working well in Adobe XD or Sketch or Figma? Well, I believe for all three of these apps, I know for XD for sure, and I know for Sketch for sure. I'm not sure about Figma. There's a plugin you can get. It's free with a paid version where you can extend it, called Stark. All right, I have it installed already. So if you go to plugins and discover plugins, and you type in Stark right here, this is the one that you want to install. So get it installed, and here's how you use it. We're going to select two elements, like a foreground and a background. We're going to go to plugins, and you can also use a shortcut, and check contrast, Shift Control Q. All right, so you'll want to remember that because you're going to be using it a little bit. Although we can use the rapid contrast, checker as well. But let's just do this. Check contrast. All right, so it shows this dialog that you can't really move around or anything, but it's letting us know, hey, wait a second, even for normal text, this doesn't suffice, but because this is large text, it is sufficing at a 3:1 ratio because it's at 3.75. It's very close. So let's close this. And another way to check this with this plugin, and I do have the paid version of the plugin, so I'm not sure if this is disabled or not, Rapid Contrast Checker. I think that's what the C is, the final C in that acronym. There we go. Where it shows you this right here. So now we can just like choose these things on the fly without having to hit a shortcut. It'll show us automatically. So let's go ahead and let's get a second piece of type where we have smaller type, like a sub headline of some sort. So I'm just going to do that, And then I'm going to, we'll make this like 16. All right. And then we will also go to my lorem ipsum here, insert text. All right, that's good. Now let's check this. Let's take this, hold shift, select the background. Doesn't work. This is a no-go. So what do we do? Like I said, we have the options here. Unfortunately, we don't have that really cool RGB sort of lines to let us know what is acceptable. So it's kind of trial and error. You can go black, in which case this does work. It's 5.61. Or you could take this background. Now let's go ahead and we're going to duplicate this. Duplicate, Control D, move this down, select this one, and then let's go ahead and change this color. Because remember, we just kind of randomly chose this color, sort of randomly, but now we're getting into the area where we're going to really tune in on exactly where we want to be with this in order to satisfy these AA ratings with white text. So we can push this over, perhaps down. Let's see what that's done. Oh, we are so close, 4.46. Look at that. So we can just take this again, 4.86. There we go. So now it works, and it definitely works with this one because this is large text anyways. So if you wanted to get to AAA, it would have to be 7:1, which is quite difficult when you're using vibrant, really saturated colors that are kind of bright. And so looking at this, my gut reaction to this is, wow, you have to really kind of change. Like look how big of a difference these two colors are. And that does seem true when you're comparing them right next to each other. So if we got rid of this, we can see that this isn't all that far off from this color right here. Again, that's if you want to satisfy the requirements, of these right here. And if you're as interested as you should be, I would say to try to make everything as accessible as possible to, as a wide array of audiences and people who have eyesight problems, then to me it makes perfect sense to go with this if you're going to use, white text as opposed to something like this over here. All right, so we'll do another example of this just to keep on playing around. Let's do a button this time. All right, let's get in here a little bit closer. Get rid of that border. So we'll just have a button right here. And this is a process. So your job isn't just done after you do a certain area. You have different components that are and elements that are a part of your design, like buttons, for instance. So you have to make sure, because a button obviously will have text in most cases, that people can see it. All right. So it's also a balancing act when you're dealing with multiple elements, that to make sure that the contrast, in relation to this background here and then with the text here and everything kind of fits together in a coherent way. For instance, like we have our little color scheme that we quickly checked out. If we go ahead and let's say and change the color here to this, for instance, these don't really, this doesn't look very good in my opinion. It doesn't mean that you have to stick to these colors at all, but they're there for your reference. And like this would be very ugly. Like that doesn't really work well at all. You can see they don't contrast well together either. So let's just use this one. It's like a very off-white. It's so barely, you can see it's like slightly green, it looks like. And again, you don't have to be tied to these. I always kind of like this color combination where you have this sort of color right here. It goes very well together. It's not quite white, but it's a cream color that really does well with that sort of color. So you could say, okay, well, we can go ahead and change that to this. There we go. So then let's use our contrast picker again. Let's center this. We'll say, let's go. I don't know. All right. And so I guarantee you, based on, here, let's make this bold. Based on this color, it's awesome. It's 20.55. It's practically the most you can get. You can also experiment by perhaps using this color. Will this work? I honestly did not know if that would work, and it is very close. It's 4.75, works well. It's large text, so yep, definitely. What about using, for instance, different background colors? How does things change, or how do things change? For instance, this background, let's say, for instance, we wanted to use this purple color. All right, you can already tell this is going to contrast a lot more than this. So it's at 12.65. This one's at 4.86. So these are decisions that you should really take seriously when you're determining, you know, like what a large background color is going to be. If you really want to make it as accessible as possible. What if we wanted to make this button that color? Well, that doesn't, in this case, it doesn't really contrast too greatly. In fact, you probably want to bump this up a shade or so. And then where would we go? Would we go black with this? It's actually 5.49. I personally don't like that. I like white on saturated colors usually. This is 3.83. So again, it's one of those balancing acts where we would take this down a notch, but then it starts not to contrast quite well with the background. So if we take these two elements, it's actually 5.1. This actually works pretty well right there. All right, so hopefully you found that helpful. All this stuff I'm going to be explaining in more detail and also showing it how it all comes together in terms of complete UI design in my upcoming course, which is going to be releasing here by 2020. And that is, of course, at completeui.design. Visit that in the browser. I'll have a link here in the description in the comments, and enter your email so that you know when it releases. And it is going to be an awesome course. So definitely give a like, give a comment if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.